In this video, we are going to be focusing on scaling and retargeting. Now, the focus of this is going to be very simple. We're going to look over the setup. I'm going to show you right inside of Facebook of how you can set up your retargeting ads. And then we're also going to look at a couple different strategies to scale your ads to the moon. Now, one of the assumptions here I'm making is that you have already launched your cold traffic campaigns. So if you have not, go ahead and watch the previous video first, because this will build off of that. So let's go ahead into Ads Manager. Okay, here we are in Ads Manager, and we are going to look at the exact setup for retargeting ads. Now, one of the very first things we're going to do is we are going to go to Audiences. I'm just going to open it up in a new tab. And we already set some of these up earlier, but there's some more that we can begin to set up as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a custom audience. And what we want to do is we want to find people that clicked our ad and visited our landing page, but didn't become a lead. All right. And there's a couple ways that you can do this depending on the funnel that you have set up. First off, is I always recommend just creating an audience of people who have been to your website, right? Because if we just do custom audience, someone's been to our website, all website visitors, anywhere your pixel is installed will start to track these people. So if you have a big website and you have your pixel installed on every page, this will create an audience of people that just have been on your site in the last 30 days or so. So this is a powerful audience to create, especially as you get more and more traffic. If you're getting organic traffic, you can retarget people who visit specific areas on your website or who just come to your website in general. So I'm going to call this all website visitors and just say 30 days because that's how long this one is. I'm going to create that audience. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create another custom audience that's website traffic. And I want people who visited a specific page on my website, right? So if you have a landing page and you're taking people to, let's just say it's mapashock.com/ the VSL for video sales letter, or CSV for case study video, and that's the link that people are going to from your ad, and they're watching a video about a program that you have. What we would type in here is just the CSV, right? Because we just want everything after or everything before the first slash. So whatever your URL is, that's what you want to put in this section, because we're looking at the specific web pages. So people click the ad and they went to whatever our ad is directing them. We want these people. So in this case, I'm going to just say visited landing page in the last 30 days. I'm going to create this audience. Perfect. Now, so we have our audience of people who visited our whole website, all website visitors here. And then we have our people who have visited our specific landing page. And then we also have our people that filled out our form. Okay, that's going to be really key. So now inside of Ads Manager, what we want to do is we want to create a new audience. We want to create a new campaign. And I'm going to call this retargeting conversions campaign, because we still want to run conversions, but we want it to be retargeting. So this is going to be retargeting all, and then this will be warm traffic ad 1, because we want to hit them with a new ad that will speak to whatever the objection is we're anticipating of why they did not take the call to action on our landing page the first time, right? So if our landing page converts at 20%, this retargeting ad is going to that 80% to see if we can get any more of them over the line. So now let's go into retargeting, and we're going to edit this, and we want to select our conversion event. We're going to set our budget. I'm just going to start off with $10 for now. And then in our custom audiences section, so I have to refresh my page because I just created those audiences. So let me just go ahead and refresh this. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to get rid of the interests, which, because we don't have an interest because we created a new ad account. So I'm going to select anybody who visited my landing page in the last 30 days. And then I'm going to leave everything else as open as possible. I'm going to do auto placement for this because I want people to see this everywhere they are. And I'm going to have no detailed targeting. I want to open up the age range just in case somebody stumbles upon it. And then I also typically like to do worldwide, right? Because you never know who's seeing your website, who's sharing it. You could have someone from another country go to your landing page. You'll want to make sure that they're picked up in the retargeting stuff that you're doing. So this is a ad set that's currently targeted to people who visited our page in the last 30 days, and we're planning to spend about $10 per day on this. So retargeting, I'm going to change this to retargeting and visited LP. Now you can see though, like early on initially, we're not going to have a lot of people visiting this page. We're probably not even going to get much spend out of this. So what you can do to start off, because you do want people to see your ad, is you could do the all website visitors and the visited landing page. And you could also do, if you've had a page for a while, people who've engaged with your page in the last 365 days or even just 30 days, you know? And then if you lump all those together, that's when I would call this retargeting all. And I recommend starting there if you've never done it before. But then as your audiences get bigger and bigger and bigger, then you could start to separate it where you have one ad set that is visited the landing page. Then you have another ad set that is all website visitors. Oh, it's a little bit delayed. All website visitors. And then you could have another ad set that is just your page engagement in the last 365 days or people in the last 10 days. And you could send a different ad to every single person or the same ad to every single person. So there's a lot of options with this. I recommend starting off with just all. And then once you get your audience size big enough, go ahead and just target the people who hit your landing page. And again, I recommend creating a new ad for them. And it's an ad specific to warm traffic that is targeted at whatever that biggest objection is that they're going to have to converting on your website. So testimonials are great for retargeting because those can help overcome objections. Case study videos are great. If you want to share an award that you've won, if you just want to attack another pain point that they might have, those are some just great examples of retargeting ads. So we create our audience, we set up this retargeting, and if we were to publish this and launch it, we would be good to go. So that's retargeting, and now let's go ahead and focus on scaling. So for scaling, the assumption I'm making is that you already are running your cold traffic campaigns. Let's just say you launched it, it's been 48 hours, you're finding some things that are working, you're spending about $100 a day. All right, how do you go from $100 a day to spending $200, $300, $400, $500 a day, or even a couple $1,000s a day if it's working and if it's making you good money? Well, there's a couple different ways that you can do that. And the two ways that I want to focus on are what are called horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. Now, vertical scaling is where you take the things that are working and you just keep scaling them up vertically. So if you're at $12, you might increase it to 15 and then to 18 and then 23 and then to 29 and then, right? And just kind of vertically increasing the budget. So if you have 10 ad sets that are all working well and you're increasing the budget 20% every 24 hours, you will start to get some spend out of that. The other thing that you can do to scale vertically is you can, let's just say that this one and this one, these two ad sets are working really, really well. I mentioned this earlier. What you can do to vertically scale this is duplicate. And when you duplicate this, you can do, because you already know that this combination is working. It doesn't guarantee it's going to work every time and that when you duplicate it's going to work, but there's a good chance of it. So you duplicate it, and then you could start these off at $100 a day. Or if the audience is big enough, you could start this off at $1,000 a day. Now, a good rule of thumb that you can use is you typically want to have, or I guess I'll just phrase it this way. You pretty much can spend $10 for every 10,000 people in your audience, right? So $10,000 $10 for every 10,000 people in your audience. So if you have an audience of 100,000 people, you probably can scale that up to $100 a day, right? Because when you start to spend more than that, your audience isn't really big enough where you might start to exhaust your audience and then your costs will inflate. Now, you can always try it. You can go above. That's like a rule of thumb. I've definitely had scenarios where that rule has been broken. But for the most part, we shouldn't expect to be spending $1,000 a day on a audience size of just 100,000 people. So, like I said, if you have an audience size of 1.4 million people, you could be starting that off at easily $1,000 a day and get a lot of scale out of that. So that's vertical scaling. And that's if you found some interest at work, you found an ad that worked, and that combination are great together, go ahead and just start to scale them and duplicate and try to see if you can replicate that same KPI with an ad set that's spending hundreds of dollars a day. And then that's vertical scaling. And then horizontal scaling, that's kind of what I want to get into for the rest of this video. Horizontal scaling is when you, instead of going up, you look at other ways that you can bring in additional ad sets. So there's a couple ways that you can do that. Let me just go back into interest. So if you, let's just say that you have these, 5 ad sets that are all working really, really well for you. Like, that these interests are great and they're converting with the ad that you're showing them. One way you could scale horizontally is you could launch a different ad to these 5 interests. So if you know that these interests work, that they like the product service that you're offering, you could go ahead and create a different ad that either promotes the same product or a different product. So essentially you could duplicate these 5 times and launch whatever that other ad is to get a different angle to see if you can get that one to work. And then you can launch again so that as you look into your campaign, you see that you might have 30, 40 ad sets that are all running within KPI. That's how you can start to get a lot of scale, by just going horizontally. So you could still have a ton of ad sets that are all anywhere from $10 to $50 a day each, and they don't even have to exceed that. If you have 50 of them, if you have 100 of them, you're going to start to spend a lot of money and make a lot of money if most of them are within KPI. So just keep that in mind. And then another approach is through lookalike audiences. So let's go back to our audiences. And we created one lookalike earlier, and we talked about this in a previous video. But I'm going to go ahead and create a couple more lookalikes just for the sake of example. So we already created a lookalike of people who I believe filled out the form. Let me double check. Yep. Now what I want to do is let's create a lookalike of people who have engaged with the page in the last 365 days. In the United States, we're going to leave this at 1%. So great, we have our lookalike here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create another lookalike of anybody who visited our website. There we go. In the past 30 days. That's going to be at 1%. And then after you create some of these initial ones, you could go ahead and you can create a lookalike of people who filled out the form in the United States at 2%, because we already created one at 1%. So let's do the 2% mark now. Oh, it says our audience is too small. So if you had more than 100 people in this, you'd be able to do the 2%. But you want to create a bunch of different lookalikes. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to create a third campaign, right? Because we want to separate all 3 of these out so we can easily track which ones are working, which ones we might need to start to optimize. So we're going to do a conversions campaign again. And then this will be ad set 1. And this is, this could either be the same cold traffic ad that you've been running, and you could use that same post ID, or you could run just a totally different ad if you wanted to. Technically, lookalikes are cold traffic, but they should be a little bit warmer, right? Because if Facebook is doing what it's supposed to be doing, it's going to be sending us people who look like whatever that source is that we identified. So then within our lookalike audience, and just so you know, this is kind of like a glitch inside of Facebook. If you're working, you're building drafts, it just carries them over. So even though we clicked into the lookalike audience, which we know only has one ad set in it, it's still pulling up these other two because this is showing me everything that I haven't published yet. So it can get to be a little bit confusing. But if that happens to you, don't feel, I know the first time it happened to me, I thought I was going crazy or something was broken. I kept refreshing my page. It's very normal for that to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this. I'm going to select my conversion event, and now I'm going to go into my custom audiences, and I'm going to select my very first lookalike. Now, what I like to do with these is keep the age as open as possible, keep everything as open as possible, and not use any special interests, and keep the placement. I do like to put that to the feed only. So I'll go ahead and update that. The rest of these settings are good here. And then I like to name the ad set itself, whatever the lookalike is, so I don't get confused. And it will be cold traffic number 1. So now here's my lookalike. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the ad the exact same ad. So I'm going to copy the post ID. I'm going to go into my cold traffic one for my lookalike and paste it there. Use existing post. And now this ad is all ready to go as well. Perfect. So now when we look at the campaign, we have our interests which are running, which we can do some vertical or horizontal scaling in that. We have a retargeting, which is helping us bring more people over the line. That's technically also helping us scale our campaign that way too. And then we have our lookalikes, which specifically focuses on horizontal scaling and just getting the most out of the campaigns that we're running. So these lookalikes, I recommend just trying all sorts of different combinations, do some with interest, some without interest. For the most part, lookalikes either crush it, they do an amazing job, or they just don't work very well for me. It's either one of the two. So it's not a guaranteed thing, but the better your source file is, the more people you have in that source file, the better usually that lookalikes are going to perform. So just keep that in mind. Now, one last thing I want to go over as you are scaling and just reviewing your retargeting and reviewing if everything's working for you and how you can get the most out of this. I encourage you to review on at least a 7-day window, ideally a 14 to 13-day window. Because if you manage your campaign from a day-to-day perspective, and if on Monday you spent $100 and you made, a lot of money, everything was within KPI, so you scale and you double and triple everything, and on Tuesday you actually lose a couple $100, you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to manage that day to day. What's really important is that you set something up, you let it run for a little bit, and you look at that 7, 14, 30-day view, and you see what's happening overall on average with my campaign. Because it will fluctuate. You will have good days, you will have bad days. But if your weekly average is in a good spot, then go ahead and scale a little bit and then watch your next weekly average, and then scale more and then watch your next average. That's a really, really advanced tactic. That's something not a lot of people understand about Facebook, is it will fluctuate day by day. You're not crazy. You're not doing anything wrong. There's things we can do to prevent that from happening a lot. But a way you can get around that is by by reviewing your campaign on a longer set of days. So just keep that in mind as you're reviewing your scaling, as you're reviewing your retargeting, your lookalikes. Are they working or not? Give them some time, and also don't be shocked if you do have a bad day followed by a really good one, or vice versa. So with that, we've looked at a lot of really fun stuff. we've looked at the scaling, and we've looked at the retargeting. We have all that set up and in place. Now it's time to go into your ad account and launch your first cold traffic if you haven't yet. And if you have, go ahead and add some of this retargeting. Try some things with these lookalikes. It's going to make a really big difference and add a lot to your campaigns.